Hello there and welcome to the final ever episode of Reach the Peak, the show where we take the cars of Forza Horizon 3 on one of the toughest challenges they can face, a tight, twisty hill climb course high up in Blizzard Mountain. We have 5 cars here for you today and I've picked out some pretty good ones for the final episode. We begin with, well, what was the cover car of Forza Horizon 3, the 2016 Lamborghini, I'm gonna get crucified for saying it this way probably, Centenario, I believe that's how it's pronounced, 759 horsepower, 508 foot-pound torque, 3,527 pounds of weight. This car is S2 class and 955 when equipped with the snow tyres. It is the most powerful car here today. It is also the torquiest. The Centenario is a pretty interesting car. It is a Lamborghini one-off concept based on the Aventador, which is actually pretty similar to a couple of the other cars that we've had go up the course. Of course, we've had Aventadors, we've had the standard one and the SV. We've also had the Veneno, which was a modified Aventador. So it'll be interesting to see how the Centenario deals with the Veneno, whether it will be quicker than the Veneno or not. Overall, I do prefer the Veneno over the Centenario. I always thought the Centenario, while it's a great looking car, don't get me wrong, and it's a little bit mental, I always thought it was sort of a bit too restrained when it comes to a Lamborghini one-off car, while, you know, some bits of it I don't particularly like the rear end with the whole diffuser situation. Not a huge fan of that, but overall it is still a pretty cool car. As far as it goes to drive, it is of course very, very, very good indeed. It is an all-wheel drive Lamborghini. These cars have dominated the leaderboard since pretty much the start of the seasons. I will say this one is, because it's the most powerful Lamborghini one-off slash Aventador based clone, it does have more slip than the other ones. It does like to sort of spin its power away a little bit, and that could affect it. We've spoken before several times on this show, more power doesn't necessarily mean quicker, and maybe that will hold court in the case of this car. Maybe the Venenos and the Aventadors will get better of it, but nevertheless, it's still a fantastic car to drive. It doesn't matter which four-wheel drive Lamborghini you choose, they're pretty much all excellent for climbing snowy hill climb courses. Next up, we have the 1996 Ferrari F50 GT, 750 horsepower, 383 foot-pound torque, 2,002 pounds of weight. S2 class 984 PI is the number. When equipped with the snow tyres, it is the least torquey car here today, the lightest car here today, and the highest in PI car. In fact, it's one of the highest PI cars we've ever had go up this course. In fact, it might even be the highest. It is the highest stock PI car, I believe, in the game at S2 990. Of course, it's equipped with race tyres as standard, and the snow tyres do drop the PI a little bit. It was the same with the Centenario. Admittedly, there's not worth putting too much stock in that number as far as how good it's going to do up this course. It is a rear-wheel drive car after all, and as we know, and as common sense would dictate, four-wheel drive is obviously better for doing a snowy hill climb than a rear-wheel drive configuration is like you have in the F50. I do like the F50 an awful lot. It's actually in my top 3 favourite Ferraris. Yes, I prefer it to the F40, believe it or not. I'm one of those people. And the F50 GT is basically an F50 on cocaine. I love it. It's a race car that never really came to pass there. I believe it got cancelled because it would have been hopelessly outclassed in the series it was trying to race in, but that is a shame because the F50 GT is fantastic. It also makes an orgasmic noise. As far as it goes to drive, well, it's a race car taking on a hill climb course. Admittedly, it can have snow tyres, unlike most of the race cars in this game, but predictably it's problematic. The one thing this does have saving grace for it, and it sounds quite weird, is because it's got such a low amount of torque, it doesn't really... You don't have to be quite as careful with it as you would in a normal car. Now, admittedly, because it's so light, it does mean it sort of twitches all over the place and you can quite easily lose control of it. But by doing it through sort of the throttle command, you still have to be careful on the throttle. But because it hasn't got that much torque, it doesn't really boot itself around and you can't really get too much issues when pressing the throttle, if that makes sense. It's still a hard car to drive, but it's better than most in its class. Next up, the 2016 Aston Martin Vantage GT12, 593 horsepower, 461 foot-pound torque, 3,450 pounds of weight. This car is S1 class 887 when equipped with the snow tyres. This has always been one of my personal favourite cars to drive here in Forza Horizon 3. I believe it was the first car I ever reviewed in this game. I didn't really do many reviews on this game, but I did review the GT12 and I found it to be a fantastic car. On the road, this thing is truly phenomenal. I seriously recommend going ahead and giving this car a go. You will be pleasantly surprised by the GT12. Yeah, it's fantastic to drive, at least for me. You know, some people might find it a little bit too understeery, but I really did not have that issue. As far as it goes to drive up here, well, obviously, it's a rear-wheel drive Grand Tourer. These cars don't do particularly well up here because they're quite heavy, they have a lot of power, and an awful lot of weight really doesn't help you up this hill climb course unless you are all-wheel drive. That being said, it's actually fairly solid to drive up here. I can't really complain. It does a lot better than some sort of these more track-orientated road cars would do. You know, it's still not great. There's no way this car's going to be any quicker than any four-wheel drive equivalent. Hell, even that Bentley Continental Super Sports that we had last time. You know, these cars kind of share similar markets. That car is way better than this car for going up the hill climb course, but this one is pretty good. I would say I'd kind of like longer gears. Admittedly, in the road car, the gears are absolutely perfect, but for taking on this course, they do feel a little bit short. It always feels like you're constantly at the peak power band, which isn't quite what you want here. You sort of want a lot of diversity in which gear you're allowed to select for sort of corners and so on and so forth. You want to shift as little as possible, and in this, or as much as possible, but have the option to not shift as much, if that makes sense, and the GT12 sort of falls apart on that. But other than that, a pretty solid car. Next up, the 2016 Subaru WRX STI VT15R. 330 horsepower, 480 foot-pound torque, 2,900 pounds of weight. A-Class 800 PI when equipped with the snow tyres, which it is by default. So this is a, well, ready-to-rumble rally car, as you'd expect. It is the least powerful car here today, however, that's only 330 horsepower. The next least powerful car has, well, almost double the power this one does. That being said, the WRX does stand a pretty good chance. We've seen these sort of pre-built rally cars do really well. The Lancia Delta Coupe B, for example, shocked us all when it got to third on our leaderboard, which I still can't believe just how quick that car was. And also upgrade hero variants of road-going rally cars. Your Imprezas, your Evos have also done very well up here. Metros have done well. So while this doesn't have the power, we're certainly not expecting it to go that far up the leaderboard. It could still stand to do pretty well. Also worth noting, you might have seen in the sort of driving to the line thing, this car does have fog lights on the front of it. Those do not affect the weight, strangely enough, for whatever reason. Most of the time they'll affect the weight slightly, and I will sort of put that into a little asterisk. But no, on this car you can run sort of the visual mods without having any issues. There is an adjustable bull bar, of course I don't put anything adjustable on the cars. As far as this goes to drive, it is pretty much as you'd expect, to be honest with you. It's very, very good. You get a lot of traction. You will not have an issue driving this car up here. It can be a little bit understeery at times, but you won't have any major incidents with this. If I was to complain about anything, I'd say maybe it's a bit on the slow side. 330 horsepower isn't enough. Realistically, if this car had closer to 400, 500 maybe, if it had 500, this thing would dominate the leaderboard. You know, but 400 and stuff, it'd be perfectly respectable. As it is a little bit slow, but still a pretty good car to drive nonetheless. And finally, the final car to ever climb up our hill climb course will be the 2015 Jaguar XFR-S, a pretty interesting choice. 550 horsepower, 502 foot-pound torque, 4,380 pounds of weight. This is the heaviest car here today. S1 832 is the PI when equipped with the snow tyres. Yeah, this is a pretty cool car. I really like the Jaguar XFR-S. It's one of the more mental super saloons on the market, and I love it for that. You know, I would go completely past your M5s and your RS... what is it for RS6, I guess, would be the closest thing, and your E63s. I'd buy this because it's blue and it's mental and I love it, and it's got a wing on it and it sounds phenomenal as well to boot. yeah, a really, really good car. Is the XFR-S, a car I do like an awful lot. Another one I've actually reviewed, I compared this with a BMW M5 back in Forza Motorsport 6, so if you want to go and watch that video, it shouldn't be too hard to find on the channel. As far as it goes to drive, well, I didn't exactly pick a good driving car to end on. Unsurprisingly, it's slidey. This is sort of what happens when you put a rear-wheel drive V8 Super Saloon up this course. This is basically the antithesis of anything resembling a good car for taking on this course, which also makes it slightly ironic that it's the last car to ever go up. Yeah, combine that with the fact that this thing has a supercharged V8 that makes all the torque in the world, and yeah, you're left with a lot of issues. You put your foot down and you will just fly off the course. You'll probably fly off the mountain and end up in someone's front garden. Yeah, not a great car for taking on this course. A silly one, yes. A fun one, definitely. Sensible, no. Quick, no. But then again, this series has sort of always been more about the fun and also some weirdness that can happen with the times. But trust me, this won't be committing any of that weirdness. Yeah, this car is just silly and stupid, and I'm glad it was the last car to ever take on the course. Anyways, on to the leaderboard, and the Centenario would not become the fastest car we've ever had. It actually dips down into third place behind the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento and the Lamborghini Veneno, which keeps its top spot and becomes the fastest car we will ever have around the course, securing a Lamborghini lockout in the top 3, Italian lockout in the top 5, which is interesting. Moving down the board, in 40th place, the Ferrari F50 GT with a 206.860 goes in between a McLaren F1 and a Mini Cooper. Yeah, it does beat our Carrera GT and a CLK GTR, so it's actually one of the quicker of those sort of supercar-y, race car-y type deals. In 49th place, the Subaru WRX STI VT15R with 207.828 goes in between an Agera and the BMW i8. Honestly, if that car had like a little bit more power, it would have gone a lot quicker. That chassis can handle a hell of a lot more than that car currently has. In 79th place, we find the Aston Martin Vantage GT12 with 211.298 squeezes in between a McLaren P1 and a Subaru Impreza WRX. It's actually slightly quicker than a Vanquish as well, which is interesting. And moving down the board, once again the slowest car of today, unsurprisingly, well, it was the big Jag. Goes into 108th place with a 214.968, does put it in between an Alfa Romeo 4C and a Nissan Silvia S15 Upgrade Hero. Yeah, it is quicker than an F-Type R and an F-Pace though, which is very interesting. I would not have it going quicker than the F-Pace, but then again, that was sort of some of the fun of Reach the Peak, some of the weirdness that would go on with the leaderboard. And yeah, that's it. That's it for Reach the Peak. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for supporting the series, whether you've watched from the beginning or whether this is your first episode. If you'd like to see the old episodes of it, of Reach the Peak again, they are in a playlist on the channel, which isn't too difficult to find. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. Of course, this would end up being a series of 2 halves. You'd have sort of the first main half, which went up to episode 44, and then this sort of revived series, which was kind of inconsistent, but nevertheless it happened. So I'm quite glad I managed to get this one out and managed to finish this series off properly, which it did deserve. Congratulations to the Lamborghini Veneno for being the quickest car we've ever had out of all 275 cars we have tested on the hill climb course. That is the quickest. Of course, there is way more cars than that in Forza Horizon 3. However, I don't have nearly enough time to cover all of those. And of course, the special Dunce Award goes to the BMW i7 for being the absolute slowest car we've ever driven up here. 4 minutes and 18 seconds. It is a double of the time, over double the time that the Veneno got. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. In all seriousness, there will be a leaderboard video going up which will show you the entire leaderboard, all 275 cars, in a nice little cinematic thing with music and so on and so forth, and that will be coming in the next few days. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, farewell. This moment